Hi guys, in this class we will see a brief review of some of our previous lessons, okay? So very briefly we will see some verbs and vocabulary, grammar, and I will ask you, and I will give you some time for you to think for the sentence or for the word, and then I will write it down, right? So that way I will force you a little bit to remember, to try to think and use what we have been learning to build structures and sentences in Spanish, okay? So our title today is Repaso de verbos, gramática y vocabulario. Repaso de verbos, gramática y vocabulario, or review of verbs, grammar and vocabulary, right? So very briefly, right? Just try to think. I'll give you a short time for you to think the answer, and then I will write it down, okay? So remember, we had learned the words for lunch, dinner, breakfast, okay? So let's say, what is the word for breakfast in Spanish? Okay? Breakfast, or lunch, or dinner. Remember, breakfast in Spanish is desayuno. Okay? The word for lunch is almuerzo. And the word for dinner is cena. Okay? So, these words, these nouns, can also become verbs. Okay? So, when we say in Spanish to have breakfast, or to have lunch, or to have dinner, right? Or to have tea, although the word for tea would be merienda, okay? This is our snack, our afternoon snack, okay? Merienda. So, what would be the verb? If you remember, in Spanish, all the verbs have necessarily to end in AR, in ER, or in IR, right? We have three groups of verbs in Spanish, yes? We are excluding the reflexive verbs where to that ending we add se, okay? So, if we want to convert this into verbs, they have necessarily to end in one of those three endings, okay? Ar, er, or ir. So, to have breakfast is desayunar. Desayunar is to have breakfast. It is a regular verb. To have lunch is almorzar. Almorzar. To have lunch. And to have dinner is cenar. Sorry. Cena. Cena is the word for dinner. And cenar is the word for to have dinner, okay? Dinner and to have dinner. And for to have snack, right, is merendar. Merendar, okay? So, if you remember our lessons, and mainly the PowerPoint video lessons, where those 22 lessons where I showed you how to conjugate all the verbs in Spanish into the 22 different Spanish conjugations or tenses, okay? So, how would we say I will have breakfast at home? I will have breakfast at home. Yo, remember we can always omit the yo, right? We don't need it. Voy a desayunar at home, en casa, okay? So remember, in Spanish we have two future tenses, right? Actually, it's one future tense, but we can say it like this: voy a desayunar, I am going to have breakfast, or desayunaré. Right? So, en casa. So these two sentences mean the same thing. This is what I call future number one, and this is what I call future number two. Right? Two ways of just speaking of the future. I am going to have breakfast at home, and I will have breakfast at home, right? For you, this one will be easier, right? You don't need to conjugate the verb desayunar. You just leave it in infinitive, right? Yo voy a desayunar en casa. I will have breakfast at home. So how do we say in Spanish, I am hungry, or I feel hungry, right? Remember, in Spanish, we do not feel, or when we have a sensation, we say we have the sensation. We do not feel the sensation, right? Or we are not the sensation, right? So how do we say we are hungry, or how do we say we feel hungry? Right? We say tengo, because we have the sensation, hambre. Hambre means hunger. So this means I have hunger, right? We can omit or include the subject pronoun I, right? We usually omit it. We usually just say tengo hambre, okay? And if I want to say I am thirsty, we would say tengo sed, okay? I have thirst. And if I want to say I will drink water, right? Try to use this future conjugation, this conjugation of future, right? Voy a, okay? I will drink water. The word for to drink is beber, right? So, I will drink water is voy a beber agua. Voy a beber agua. Now, how do we say Amy feels cold? Amy feels cold. Remember, sensations, we have the sensations. So what is the verb we use in Spanish? The verb to have, right? The verb, that is the verb tener. In infinitive, the verb is tener. Tener, okay? Amy feels cold. Amy tiene frío, okay? We feel hot, right? We feel hot, we will say. Nosotros, we feel means, in Spanish we say we have the sensation. Nosotros tenemos calor. Calor, okay? For the feeling of hot, right? Calor. So now remember the word for clothes. Yes? How do we say clothes in Spanish? The word for clothes is ropa, right? Ropa is a generic word that is in singular, but it means in general clothes, right? So while the word for clothes in English is a plural word, in Spanish it is a singular word, okay? Although we can also say it in the plural, but we usually say the word ropa in singular to refer